Hi, today I'm going to be reviewing a book that I just finished, Bright Lights, Big City, by Jay McInerney. Here's the cover for my version. What I'd like to do first is just read you the synopsis on the back, this little blurb here, and based on that, give you what I thought I was going to be getting myself into when I first read the synopsis, but prior to reading the actual novel. The novel follows a young man living in Manhattan as if he owned it, through nightclubs, fashion shows, editorial offices, and loft parties as he attempts to outstrip mortality and the recurring approach of dawn. With nothing but goodwill, controlled substances, and wit to sustain him in this anti-quest, he runs until he reaches his reckoning point, where he is forced to acknowledge loss and possibly to rediscover his better instincts. This remarkable novel of youth and New York remains one of the most beloved, imitated, and iconic novels in America. Now, just based on reading that, what I expected to find was a novel densely packed with drug references, crazy nights, party stories, and to be honest, I expected the main character to be somewhat arrogant, really unsympathetic to me, and someone that I couldn't relate to. Now, I forget exactly where I was told about this book. If I think it was on one of those lists where it's like 25 books every 20-year-old or 20-something needs to read, something of that nature. And I thought I'd give it a shot. It sounded mildly interesting. It was pretty inexpensive as far as books go. I think I got a deal on this as $15, but I don't remember paying that much for it. Anyway, it's a pretty short book, slim volume. So I said, go ahead and read it. What I found was a surprisingly warm novel. Something I actually did really relate to, which surprised me. I feel the synopsis on the back doesn't really do the novel justice in my mind. First, and there are a lot of references to clubs and cocaine use, or as our protagonist likes to call it, Bolivian marching powder. And I've read other people's reviews, and they seem to focus on just how much of that is in the novel. But for me, that actually wasn't that prevalent. It was just a backdrop to the daytime world of our protagonist. You could say it was almost like it was set up in such a way that you have his daytime world where he is a warm guy, very sympathetic, relatable, and you can see him with his real world problems, and then you have this nightclub world where he does the drug use and all that, where he runs to escape from these problems that he's having in his real life. It's packed with interesting characters that are very unique. Our main character, he works for a prominent literary magazine in New York. He's in the department of factual verification. This is pre-internet, so his job is essentially just to read articles and make sure everything in them is true or factual. The different people who work in his office are interesting little characters. They don't play a major role in the office except one of them, Megan. You also have his editor, whose name is Clara Tillingfast, I believe, is very interesting. She's a big antagonist to him for part of the novel, and there's really a funny, interesting character. You also have the head editor of the magazine, who he refers to as the Druid, also a different, interesting character. And I don't know, it's so much not the characters themselves, but how the protagonist thinks and interacts with them that makes them funny. You also have his best friend, supposed best friend, who is really the one who kind of eggs him into going into these clubs and things, who's also I want to say the best way to picture him, I would say, is imagine just like old New England prep on crack. Just he works at an advertising agency and just knows everyone and is moving from club to club, party to party, and one of those guys. Just always going, life of the party, but kind of can leave you or take you with him, at the drop of the hat. But back to the novel. I found the main character to be super sympathetic and someone I really related to. Not because of his drug use or anything, but his humor is funny, and a lot of times he's self-depreciating, which is, can be endearing when it's not overly done. Also, he is a little bit like me. He aspires to be a writer, really into fiction. And I think another technique that made me really sympathetic to the main character was that this novel, which I actually didn't know before I read it, but apparently is one of the big drawing points, is written in the second person. So the protagonist is you, and some people find that really distracting. And I think the reason why it's not a popular literary device is that you're not supposed to make assumptions about the reader. It can make people just react terribly and kind of pushes them away. But it also has the potential to draw someone deep into the novel and into that character, which in my case is what happened. There's a lot about life. It's like a quarter life crisis book. I believe he's 24, our main character. A lot of quarter life crisis type of things, figuring out what he's really going to do. What is he going to, settle? Is he going to try to make it as a writer? And a lot about relationships and what's important in a relationship and trying to find the perfect woman. He talks about this elusive type of woman that he's looking for in bars but would never go to bars, kind of like, which I also find, I think about stuff like that quite a bit. Go to clubs or party and I'm like, oh, you're going to meet that girl who's smart and reads all, interested in all the same things, and who dislikes clubs and parties as much as you do, but why would she be there? Type of thing. It doesn't really make sense, and it's illogical, but I understand it. And I'm sure there are lots of people who understand that feeling. It's probably pretty common. So our main character, very sympathetic, and for all the talk of relationships, there's only really 4 women who have relationships to our protagonist. They're the first one we're introduced to, and who comes up the most, is Amanda, his ex-wife, estranged wife. And throughout the book, you learn more and more about her and what the backstory is between him and her. In the beginning, all you know is that she's a model. They live in New York. She went to Paris for a fashion show, calls the protagonist and says, I'm not coming back. I'm living in Paris from now on. And for most of the novel, that's all you really know. And you kind of understand that's part of the reason why he is kind of going down this spiral. You learn more throughout the book, and he kind of comes to terms with what had happened. I don't want to ruin it for you. Interesting. I didn't find her to be the most dynamic character, and I think that's part of the point. He makes references to how he only saw in her what he wanted to see. She only put forth what he wanted to see because he was her ticket out of small town Kansas, or I forget exactly where she's from, but something like that. And then once she got to bigger and better things, she didn't need him anymore. Then you have two characters who could be possible love interests and are both really dynamic. And actually, I like both characters a lot. You have Megan, who is his coworker, um, and really kind of ambiguous in his description of her. He never really says how old she is or too much what she looks like, but she seems to be interested in the protagonist in the early stages of the book, and then later on helps him out, kind of come to an emotional moment of clarity. Um, you also have, I forget what her name is. I think it's Vicky, but you have his best friend Tad's cousin who comes in and is really the closest thing to a love interest. They spend an evening together, and it's really an entertaining kind of date story. Just because the main character is pretty funny and witty. Um, she's also really interesting. She comes back in via phone conversations a few times. She also helps him come to these emotional revelations, kind of. And then at the very end of the novel, you have the most important female character. And this is probably true of people in real life too, but you have his mother, who, I also don't want to spoil it, but plays a big part in the finale of the novel. Um, Overall, I found the novel was very warm, very interesting. I thought it moved at a very fast pace. I've read reviews where people said that it was slow or plodding, and I didn't find that to be true. I found it very quick, not a very dense novel. The language is very easy to understand and read. Um, I finished in about over the course of 2 days, probably total time 12 hours maybe. Very good, very interesting, and the lesson at the end I thought was good. I came away after reading this book with a sense of having learned something or an experience. It was an experience, and not a lot of books will do that. I don't walk away having actually felt that much from most novels. Um, Probably not for everybody, but I found very enlightening. And the ending, without ruining too much, I feel is all about acknowledging loss and supporting and interacting and staying connected to family and the ones you love, and just a very not happy but uplifting kind of ending. And this is also interesting because it's written as just a slice of this person's life. This isn't, oh, he, happily ever after. This is just a portion of this man's life. Which also I think is an interesting concept because it's technically you. It's a portion of your life. It's, everything you go through. And I think for anyone who's in their early to mid 20s or late 20s, whatever, I feel this is probably more relevant. For people who are older than that, you've probably gone through these things, and it might be interesting to look back and maybe you see like, oh, I remember feeling that way. That'd probably be pretty interesting as well. And I feel like, if you're younger, it'd be interesting to read just to see, that things happen, and maybe different strategies on how to deal with stuff, or what not to do. Anyway, I'm a pretty easy grader, so for these reviews I'm going to try to be critical with my rating system. And just so there's a general guideline, I'm going to do stars, because everyone's familiar with that. Let's see, I'm going to do 5 stars total. So if you get a 1-star rating, then I hated it, and I would really like to slap the author in the face. And if it's an author I respect that just wrote a terrible book, I would just ask them why. 2 stars, if you have nothing else to do at all and you got it for free, go ahead and read it. 3, average, fair. I'd say if you're one of those people that just needs to read certain books because they're the books to read, or you just pick up a book. If you just find it at a garage sale, or you know, it's okay. That's going to be 3 stars. 4 stars, I'm going to say was really good. I enjoyed it immensely. And if it sounds like an interesting subject matter, I really suggest you go pick it up and give it a shot, because you'll probably really enjoy it too. 5 stars, I'm going to reserve for books that I think are just classic, that everybody should go read. You could make a list of my 5-star books and say, these are the books are must reads. If I were a teacher and I could assign whatever books I wanted, those would be the books I'd assign for people to read. I'm going to give this book 4 stars. So like I said, I thought it was really good, superb. I thought it was witty, funny, heartwarming, very entertaining. I really enjoyed the use of the second person perspective. But if you totally aren't interested in coming of age stories, 80s stories, drug stories, if you're not interested in any of that, I wouldn't get it. But if any of that even sounds a little interesting, I would definitely suggest you go pick it up, read it. It's really quick. I think it's really funny. I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll try my best to answer. Or if you know me personally, go ahead and get a hold of me and ask me. Anyway, thanks for the time. Have a good one. Enjoy.